Hello, I'm Alison. I look after the Sainsbury Archive, which is based at the Museum of London Docklands, and today I'm here to talk to you about the history of advertising at Sainsbury's. So the Sainsbury Archive collection charts the history of Sainsbury's from its foundation in Drury Lane in 1869 to now. It provides a unique record of the transformation that has occurred in retailing since the mid-19th century and the impact of these changes on society. The collection includes all the items you would expect in a business archive, key company records such as reports and accounts, press releases, head office operations, food supply, etc., etc. However, it is particularly strong in the areas of marketing and advertising, and it's this series of records that I will be talking about here. However, I thought I would start with a brief explanation of how Sainsbury's was established, as the values that were important to the founders of the company were a key ingredient to their success, and this feeds into their advertising campaigns. Sainsbury's was founded in 1869 by the two handsome people on the left-hand side of this slide, and this is John James Sainsbury and Mary Ann Sainsbury. Company legend has it that the date of the foundation of the business is the 20th of April 1869, which was the date of John James and Mary Ann's wedding day. There's an argument that the shop was open slightly before or slightly after this date. However, selecting this date as that of the foundation of the business recognises the very important role that Mary Ann played in running the first shop in the early years. So the first shop was located at 173 Drury Lane in the heart of the West End of London. And here's an image of the shop taken shortly after the end of the First World War. However, this is the earliest image we have of the shop in our collection. The first shop only sold 3 items: eggs, milk, and butter. And the shop was opened at a time when contamination of food was rife, with milk frequently watered down and colouring added. The couple's declared aim, therefore, was to have the best butter in London, which would be pure and sold in a clean environment. It said it was Mary Ann that was responsible for the cleanliness of the shop, and Sainsbury's became famous for the quality of its butter. John James and Mary Ann believed that even the poorest customers appreciated and deserved the best quality food for the lowest price, and one of the earliest slogans they used was "Quality perfect, prices lower." Indeed, you can see evidence of the company's principles of quality and value on the board above the shop in this picture. Early advertising tended to come in the form of free gifts to customers. Sainsbury's began selling tea in 1903. Existing customers who tried it quickly came to appreciate its quality and value, but the company wanted to offer other ways to attract new shoppers into its growing number of branches. Around 1905, Sainsbury's commissioned a series of beautifully illustrated postcard-sized cards depicting well-known fairy tales, and gave them out for free with packets of its pure teas. The idea was that customers would buy tea regularly in order to collect all the cards. The success of the strategy is clear from the memories of an early customer daughter who said, "Each Friday afternoon my mother would meet me from school, from where we went to the Red Hill branch of Sainsbury's to buy the weekly groceries. For me, the most important item was the packet of tea containing an instalment of a fairy story. I would wait in an agony of suspense until we opened the packet on leaving the shop." In all, the archive has 6 sets of fairy tale top cards. Each story is told across 6 cards. The back of each card was meant to be just as entertaining as the front. Each fairy tale is vividly narrated, and most sets feature an early form of product placement, with references to J. Sainsbury's pure tea woven into the story. We find out that a cup of Sainsbury's pure tea revived Jack, who was very faint after his tumble from the beanstalk. On his way to see Sleeping Beauty, the prince had helped himself to a cup of Sainsbury's pure tea. And Cinderella fled, but on the stairs she lost one of her glass slippers, and she missed her cup of J. Sainsbury's pure tea too. Poor thing. Other early advertising came in the form of small trade tokens made in imitation of the guineas of George III, issued between 1787 and 1800, and nicknamed spade guineas from the shape of the shield on the reverse. These tokens are made of brass, however sometimes they are so highly burnished they are taken for gold. The tokens were made by manufacturers in Birmingham and were bought in vast quantities by many retailers to be stamped with their own devices and to be given away to customers. Although these tokens had no monetary value and could not be exchanged for goods, customers collected them in large numbers for use as toy money or gaming tokens, and they proved to be a highly successful advertising gimmick. The Sainsbury's tokens vary considerably in design. The earliest known was issued in 1882 and bore the heads of George III on one side, with legends such as Wholesale Depot, London, NW, and J. Sainsbury, Provision Merchants, opposite West Croydon Station on the other. Several variety of tokens were issued with the opening of Seven Sisters Road North branch of Sainsbury's in 1889. Examples include special table delicacies, dealer of poultry and game, arrivals of pure butter daily, and high-class provision merchant. The company's last purchase of guineas occurred in 1913 to celebrate the opening of a branch in Norwich. A very popular design token, much used at the beginning of this century, just bore the legend J. Sainsbury's for best provisions. Apparently, the company disposed of a large number of its excess tokens in around about 1915 to a travelling theatre group to use as stage props. By the 1920s, the company had fully embraced press advertisements, especially used to highlight their prices in store and when new branches opened. Blue Caddy Tea advertisements are illustrative of the form of advertisement Sainsbury's took in the 1920s. These advertisements appeared in the press and were also produced as colour postcards in store. This was also the first time the company used a celebrity to endorse their products. In this case, it was Amy Johnson, also known as Amiable Amy at the time. The famous female aviator featured in tea adverts in 1931. I thought at this point it might be helpful to have a quick note about how the shops during the interwar years will be laid out, as it will be very different to how shops are now. During this period, most of the stores had 6 departments. There was dairy, bacon and hams, poultry and game, cooked meats, fresh meats, and groceries. This meant that most Sainsbury's stores were larger than its competitors. There was no hard and fast rules about the relative positions of the departments in the Sainsbury's shop. However, the top spot was considered to be the spot nearest the window at the front of the shop. And this was used for seasonal specialities such as cooked meats in the summer months for people going on picnics, or poultry and game in the run-up to Christmas. The showmanship of the butterman knocking up butter was a strong candidate for this location at other times of the year. And this involved the buttermen weighing and then shaping the butter using wooden paddles and wrapping it in paper and giving it to the customer. So this photograph is the counter service branch in Chelmsford, which was opened in 1922, and it's a great example of how all Sainsbury's shops used to look at this period. They were usually built in the middle of a parade, as John James didn't like corner branches, declaring that they were only good for banks. The inside of the stores were long and thin and had marble countertops from which to serve customers. The highly glazed tiles were produced specifically for Sainsbury's by Minton in a variety of complex patterns, which this photograph shows. All the tiles and marbles played an important role, keeping the shop clean and cool. And also in this photograph, you can just spy Amy Johnson looking out over the top of the shelves of the provisions in her tea adverts. Advertisement was also used in store to promote certain goods. For example, here are images of the Krelos margarine show card and window display. The show cards often had messages printed on them, such as delicious on toast, or in this case, as you can see just right down at the bottom of the window display, baby loves it. These were then placed near the goods on display. Inevitably, the messages became synonymous with the product. More elaborate coloured show cards were reserved for special window and point of sale displays, such as this one here. At the same time, price lists were produced and given out to customers. These were totally different from any other kind of advertising at the time and were published fortnightly. They were produced so customers could pick items in the comfort of their own home, drop in a list of items they wanted to order in the shop, and then have them delivered to their house. So for all of you that thought home delivery was a new invention that was heralded as part of the internet age, think again, because our first price list dates from 1895. During the Second World War, Sainsbury's trading in London and the South East was badly affected by enemy bombing, with over 600 recorded incidents of bomb damage to stores. In addition, rationing regulations seriously affected Sainsbury's trading. Sainsbury's introduced their fair share schemes before rationing was introduced nationally to ensure the equitable distribution of goods which were in short supply. This advertisement stating, "Please go easy with the bacon," was designed by the company's first in-house designer, Leonard Beaumont, under the supervision of Francis Meynell of the company's then advertising agents, Martha and Crowther. It dates from 1939, predating the introduction of rationing in January 1940. Once rationing was introduced, customers were required to re-register ration goods twice a year, and this was no small task, as over the war there were over 60 million changes of address. This caused problems for Sainsbury's because as the war progressed, the trading advantages that had made the company so successful in the interwar years actually made it more difficult to retain registrations. One reason for this was that the core of Sainsbury's business was the sale of meat and provisions such as bacon and dairy produce. And these was rationed, the company was particularly vulnerable if customers transferred their registrations to other retailers. Another reason was that Sainsbury's trading heartland in London and the South East was the area most affected by evacuations. Many regular customers left their houses for long periods in the war. A third fact was that the high street sites became less attractive to customers faced with air raids, a disrupted public transport system, and a blackout, with many customers registering with their local corner shop. Sainsbury's responded to these difficulties by emphasising its traditional strengths, and customers were reminded that because Sainsbury's had such a variety of stock, it was actually easier to visit just one of their branches rather than visiting half a dozen specialist shops, even if they were closer to home. Advertisements were placed in the national newspapers giving general advice about rationing and stressing the far greater choices for goods to be found at Sainsbury's store. After the end of the Second World War, one of the company directors, Alan Sainsbury, made a trip to the United States. He took note of the incredibly different way that America stocked and sold food in supermarkets and decided this was where the future of food shopping in Britain lay. In 1950, the first of Sainsbury's self-service shops was opened at 911 London Road in Croydon. While most customers were pleased with the changes as it allowed customers to shop at their leisure, there was less queuing and much more choice of produce. Self-service was not universally loved. And we've heard a story in the archive of a customer who, when told about the new style of shopping, refused to carry her own items and made the shop manager walk round the shop with her, placing selected items in the basket for her. It was such a revolution to grocery shopping that the company had to print guides and advertisements that helped familiarise customers with the new self-service methods. An example of product innovation stimulated by self-service shopping methods was the introduction of the ready-to-cook chicken, which made what was a relatively expensive meat into an everyday staple, and Sainsbury's popularised chicken as an inexpensive family meal. One other type of company to customer communication was with recipe leaflets. This can be shown in this chicken and one pan leaflet, which was one of a series offering novel recipe ideas for chicken to suit different lifestyles. In 1958, Sainsbury's ventured for the first time into television advertising to promote its ready-to-eat chicken. Jim Woods was merchandising manager at the time and was responsible for the production of the advertisement. He said, "We did the filming at the Putney branch, and every time we started recording, one of us had to dash outside to stop the traffic because of the noise. The actress who played the customer had to take her shoes off because they made a noise on our mosaic floor, and I carved the chicken myself." Later, television advertisements made use of a set built from shop fittings borrowed from the firm's trading school at Blackfriars. Now, sadly, we don't have the first advertisement in the archive. However, I thought I'd show a contemporary to this, one of an advertisement for butter, and it gives you a good flavour of Sainsbury's early advertisements.
This is the freshest margarine you can buy. It's Sainsbury's own JS margarine, made only for Sainsbury's customers. It's fresh because Sainsbury's vans deliver it 4 or 5 times a week. It's specially good because it has 10% pure butter, and yet it's only a shilling a half pound. Ask for JS margarine next time you're in Sainsbury's. You'll like it. You get better margarine for your money at Sainsbury's.
So in 1959, Sainsbury's introduced the slogan, "Good food costs less at Sainsbury's." It was emblazoned on everything from paper bags to delivery lorries and was described by BBC News as probably the best known advertising slogan in retailing. You'll notice this bears a striking resemblance to "Quality perfect, prices lower," or "You get better margarine for your money at Sainsbury's." And to be frank, also, "Live well for less," which was a slogan introduced by Sainsbury's in 2011, providing that some things never change. It was during the 1970s that supermarkets really began a move to large out-of-town retail sites. This was due mostly to the difficulties Sainsbury's encountered whilst trying to obtain planning permission for larger supermarkets that were based closer to town centres. The first of these out-of-town shops to open was at Coldham's Lane, in a non-residential area on the eastern edge of Cambridge, which opened on the 3rd of December 1974. The opening of the Coldham's Lane store was an important milestone as the conversion to self-service of the Croydon branch 24 years earlier. The store's 24,000 square foot sales area offered space to experiment with new products like electrical goods, kitchen hardware, household linens, cosmetics, stationery, and even gardening and DIY tools. The most adventurous result of these out-of-town shopping centres was the introduction of a range of own brand clothing. It was also in the 1970s that Sainsbury's diversified into the rapidly growing frozen food market and increased the range of the wine department. They also opened their first shop in Yorkshire in Doncaster, and they started to expand nationally into Wales. And I also wanted to give a shout out to the humble point of sale barker card, or as I used to call them, shelf talkers, which were introduced into supermarkets in the 1970s. In the mid-1970s, Sainsbury's started a 40-year relationship with the advertising company Abbott Mead Vickers. One of the classic campaigns that they produced included the series of everyone's favourite ingredient advertisements in the 1990s, in which a celebrity highlighted and used a new ingredient in a recipe with the infamous "Simply Take" tagline. The one we get asked for most is this one for mascarpone and lime torte. However, the one I remember most vividly is Catherine Zeta-Jones and her creme fraiche brulee, and I'm probably showing you all my age here, but I just thought I would show you this classic bit of TV advertising.
Take 1 punnet of Sainsbury's strawberries and slice. Arrange them in the bottom of an oven-proof flan or soufflé dish. Now add some Sainsbury's white grapes. Use about 4 ounces cut in half. After that, you'll need 1 fresh peach. Slice and add that to the bowl too. Next, take 10 ratafia biscuits and arrange them on top of the fruit. Now spoon on 2 small tubs of Sainsbury's creme fraiche. Smooth over and make sure the fruit is completely covered in. Chill for at least 1 hour in the fridge. Remove and sprinkle on 4 to 6 ounces of light soft brown sugar. Then place under a preheated grill until the sugar has caramelized. Decorate with a sprig of fresh mint. Wait for the sugar to harden and then serve. Irresistible.
Sainsbury's, everyone's favourite ingredient.
Oh, my young northern soul, the Catherine Zeta-Jones and her Sainsbury's creme fraiche creme brulee was probably the most glamorous thing I could have imagined. So another advertising campaign I'm sure you'll remember is the one that I like to refer to as the Jamie Oliver years, and these ran between 2000 to 2011. And this was twofold in that not only did he front the advertising campaign, he also worked behind the scenes with Sainsbury's food development team to create new food available in store and recipe cards for customers to pick up and cook themselves. And these adverts and recipe cards proved to be very popular with Sainsbury's customers. And I'm going to show you what I think is probably the most well-known of these advertisements.
Richie boy, I'm just going to go down to Sainsbury's, get some munchies. What do you want?
Some pasta salad or something.
Aye, aye. Try before you buy.
Yeah.
All right, then. Are they sun-brushed tomatoes?
Yeah, they are.
Can I have a little tub of those?
Anything else?
See what would be nice? One of those green olives. Little knob of parmesan, though. Oh, no. I got it in my helmet. I'll save it for later. Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye, Rich.
I'm starving. Are you not having anything?
No, mate, I'm not hungry.
Sainsbury's, making life taste better.
I'm not sure if anyone actually went and had their lunch at the deli counter at the time. So in 2012, Sainsbury's became the first ever Paralympic sponsors in a campaign fronted by David Beckham and Johnny Peacock with the strapline, "Here's to Extraordinary." And thousands of Sainsbury's staff went down to the Olympic Park and took part and watched different... They were there on thousands of Sainsbury's staff went and watched the Olympics, the Paralympics at Stratford. One recent advertising phenomenon is the introduction of the yearly release of the Christmas TV advert. And the best known Sainsbury's adverts are the ones released in 2014 and 2015, and they featured the Wilbur Christmas Day Truce and Mog at Christmas, respectively. The 2014 advert is considered by many customers to be their favourite Sainsbury's Christmas advertisement, and it tells the story of the Christmas Day truce in the trenches of World War I 100 years earlier. And this was made in conjunction with Sainsbury's long-standing partner, the Royal British Legion. And I couldn't give up the opportunity to show this to you.
Jenkins, I'm clean. No.
Ein Briter kommt! Ein Briter kommt!
Jim?
Jim, don't do it!
Halt! Er ist nicht bewaffnet! Nein, Otto!
Jim!
My name is Jim.
Mein Name ist Otto.
Pleased to meet you, Otto.
Freut mich.
Rose, she's called.
Sie ist schön. Schön. Danke.
Happy Christmas.
Frohe Weihnachten.
So in 2019, Sainsbury's celebrated their 150th anniversary. And this was also accompanied by a large marketing campaign which heavily used the archive's resources. Not only was there in-store point of sale and a lovely advertisement which focused on Sainsbury's staff achievements and contributions to society, there was also free gifts to customers. They gave out tea and biscuits to customers. And this harked heavily back to free gifts that were offered when the company first opened. To come full circle, the company also created a Drury Lane experience, which was open for 1 week in May. It was situated off Covent Garden in London and was a recreation of a typical counter service branch with actors telling the story of the Sainsbury's history. It was a proper theatrical event, which was planned and organised by the company's advertising firm. The space was used to host a number of high-profile company events, but it was also open to the public who could book tickets. We still have boxes of the reproduction food packets that were used for set display in the archive, which we now use for all of our handling sessions. The highlight of this event was undoubtedly a visit from the late Queen. This got lots of press attention as she was shown a self-service machine, and she asked the question we all like to answer, and that was, is it possible to steal items from them? She was also photographed holding items from the archive. I don't think we've got an image of it on here on the screen, but she definitely was photographed holding some of our ration books. And to finish, I just thought I'd show you a list of advertising slogans that Sainsbury's have used throughout their history, as I think this illustrates that the values that John James and Mary Ann tried to install in their first shop are still core to the company's aims today, and also that quality and low prices are always going to be what the customer wants. Just popping up on the screen here are contact details if you want to email with any questions. There's also address of the website where you can find digitized items of some of the items that we've displayed here, such as all of the recipe cards. Thank you very much for listening.